What's going on, everybody? Hello, friends. Whoa. My laptop freaked out because I started the stream. Just have to run to YouTube and grab the link so that I can tweet it out. But I'm going to assume that y'all are filtering in slowly but surely here at 11:30 p.m. Maybe it's rather slowly given the time, but it's the way it's got to be when I'm at Busch Stadium and get home late from the ball game. But it was a good one tonight for the Cardinals. So that is lovely. Gonna figure out a way to tweet this out, get under the Elon Musk character limit, and then will begin to look at your comments. Appreciate you guys for being here tonight. I'm saying all this assuming that you are here because I have not seen it yet. Just give me 1 second. That's the way to do it. All right. That part is done. Find ourselves here on the YouTube studio. There it is. Welcome in, folks. Caleb, hello. Trevor, hello. Hello to Aaron as well. Blue Jays rock. Wondering about Nolan Gorman's MVP candidacy. You never do know, do you? Could be something that we talk about tonight. Nolan Gorman looks locked in for sure. Welcome in, guys. Make sure to like the stream when you get in here. And within a couple of minutes, we will start. We'll give everybody a moment to file in. As is tradition, I make sure the stream is doing okay and not crashing into oblivion. That's never fun when that happens. But we got a Cardinals win to talk about tonight. And boy, howdy do we. 18-1 over the division leading, at least for the moment, Milwaukee Brewers. Okay, I think we've got what we wanted out of Twitter. Going to close that down, but retweet it if you can open both apps at the same time on your phone or computer, however you're watching. Allison stayed awake just for this. No question, but yeah, we're going to have some good things to say, I think, about the Cardinals tonight. Remember, I had said this was a critical outing for Jack Flaherty, and he responded to the moment as well as anybody could have hoped. Is Jack back? We will potentially talk about that. Like the stream, guys, if you are just hopping in. Appreciate you for being here. Going to get things set up now. There we go. Wonderful, wonderful. 11:30 p.m. I get that it's late, but we'll have a few people in here tonight, I presume. Jack was dealing tonight? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Okay. I'm going to get my water here. If you'd like to comment on the stream, if you're new, the way to comment is by subscribing to the YouTube channel. And then within 1 minute, you will have that ban lifted. They don't let you comment. Well, I don't let you comment unless you subscribe. That's the way I can maybe gain a few new subscribers each time we do one of these. If you haven't subscribed before, would love to have you on board. Let's get the likes up to 10, and we'll kick this thing off here in a moment. Hello to Connor as well. Hello, everybody. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game tonight. Obviously, it went about as well as it could for the Cardinals, but go ahead and get your comments in now. And as usual, I will begin my scroll here in a few minutes and be able to get to as many as we can. Let's get the likes up. We're close to 10 now. We're close to 10 with 19 viewers in the party. Let me know who's here. If you've never commented before, say hello. Introduce yourself to the group. Appreciate you, each and every one, for being here. All right, I think we are ready to get this thing kicked off. And so, one more sip. I've got to kind of conserve water tonight because my water bottle is in the car. But some free advertising for CJ's in Columbia. There you go. All right, 7 likes. Let's get 3 more, and we'll be good to go. I'm going to start regardless of the likes, but I appreciate them if and when they do come in. All right, let's get this thing started in 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of Be Shafe Daily Live. As tonight, we're talking about that first game of a homestand. I hear those have been tricky for the Cardinals in the past. Took them a while, right, to get that first win of a series so far, but that was not the case tonight. 18-1 over the Milwaukee Brewers. I believe we're talking about a 10-run eighth inning for the Cardinals tonight. As I pop over to the box score, yikes. 10-run eighth inning. This game was all Cardinals even before that happened, though. And to me, I know 18-1 is the headline, and the bats really came to life, batting around and then some. I think they sent 13 men to the plate there in the eighth inning. But the big story of tonight is the one that developed over the first 7 innings of this game. Jack Flaherty looking back as back could be with 7 shutout innings for the Cardinals. I think they've maybe had one outing of a guy that's gone 7 this year. Y'all can check me on that. I think maybe Jordan Montgomery did it once. It's been a rarity, regardless of the frequency. It's not been something you've seen all too often from Cardinals starting pitchers this season. We have talked a lot about the fact that the rotation has been a little bit of an eyesore when it comes to the performance through the first, 5-6 weeks of the season. It's starting to come around a little bit, though. You got Miles Michaelis with the 6-inning shutout outing. Didn't strike anybody out, right? But had a really good outing for the Cardinals. I may have said shutout. I can't remember if he did give up a run or not, but no Ks in that outing. I recall that. But a good 6-inning outing for Michaelis, and now Jack Flaherty tonight with, I think, the most dominant we have seen a Cardinals starter all year. That is probably a fair thing to say about what Jack did tonight. 10 strikeouts, the 10th time in his career, I believe, that he has had a 10 strikeout game. But he was locked in after that first inning. A little bit of a struggle to get things started. 4-pitch walk to lead off the game. Loaded the bases in that inning, but does what he has so often done this season, getting out of it with a ground ball double play. And the story between Jack and then Willson Contreras behind the plate. To be able to have that kind of performance in the first game back behind the plate for Contreras, who has been through the ringer a little bit over the past 10 days or so, I think was very meaningful for the Cardinals to get that kind of outing from that kind of pitcher who, as we've talked about leading up to the season back in spring training on Be Shafe Daily, Jack Flaherty is the guy in this rotation that can have that type of ceiling, that can be a true dominant ace. Not to take away from any of the other starters, but Jack is the guy with the raw talent off the charts in the prime of his career to be able to do things like we saw tonight. And it was very good for Cardinals fans, I'm sure, to see Jack get it done. Again, 7 really strong innings. Innings 2 through 7. If you take away the first, I believe he threw 22 or so pitches in the first inning, loaded the bases, got out of it with a ground ball double play that, by the way, was hit by Willson Contreras, the brother of Willson. And so if there's anybody that Willson should be able to call pitches against, it would be his own brother. He dialed up the right one to get the 5-4-3 and get out of that jam. But innings 2 through 7 for Flaherty, as good as we've seen him all year, obviously, but honestly, as good as we've seen him in his career. Like when Jack Flaherty in 2019 was doing his thing, early parts of 2021, you could even look October 2020 against the Padres there in that playoff series. Jack Flaherty tonight that we saw was as good as we've seen him, I think, throughout his career. And it's what he'll be looking to replicate moving forward. Like, he had those 2 walks. They were both in the first inning. Didn't walk a guy the rest of the night. Had maybe 2 base hits that he scattered throughout the remainder of the game. He was fantastic. Lowers the ERA nearly a full run. And so a fantastic outing by Flaherty to sort of counteract the 10-run outing a couple of weeks ago, which I think was, as we kind of maybe have found out, maybe not definitively, but it certainly seems as though that was the beginning of all of the trouble that the Cardinals had when it came to a decision around Willson Contreras, what the path forward would be. They sidelined him from catching duties. He didn't make another start after that 10-inning outing. He came in to a relief outing, I think in that one of those games against Detroit. I may be conflating here on what the timing on all of this was, but I think that's right, that he mostly didn't play and came into that maybe it was that Friday night game for like an inning. And after that, he didn't make another start, and Saturday morning was when they kind of announced it, and it was like, okay, this is troublesome. What is happening with the Cardinals right now? But they work it out, and tonight it couldn't have been better to have Willson Contreras back behind the plate, to have it be with Jack Flaherty. There's a lot of talk about the conversation that went on in Chicago between Flaherty and Wainwright and Ollie Marmol with Willson Contreras. Willson saying tonight that, that conversation was good for him to be able to be in the middle of, because he felt like and I'm going to paraphrase Willson here a little bit. It's not that he wasn't being himself, but that was a conversation that really allowed them to understand who Willson is and what he's all about. He felt like he was Willson now, and those guys can understand me and understand who I am, what I'm about, and how much he cares, he said, is something that shined through in that conversation, which, again, he said, it's not that I wasn't being me before, but I feel like they got an opportunity to be vulnerable with one another and to, like, lay it out all on the table and have that kind of communication barrier, if there was one, drop off the face of the earth and open things up for the Cardinals franchise catcher to get with two of their veteran-most starters and lay everything out there. I think it was clearly a productive conversation. And Jack Flaherty, we know we've talked about his post games and different things that he said, and I promise I will be getting to the comments here in a moment, but I wanted to kind of dive in with some first thoughts on the Flaherty performance tonight, which was fantastic. There's no other way to put it. He was excellent for the Cardinals tonight, especially innings 2 through 7 after he was able to get out of that first inning jam. Cardinals get a home run from Arenado, and then he has the shutdown inning in emphatic form. I think a couple of strikeouts in that inning, might have struck out the side. 10 in the night, fantastic performance from Flaherty. But it was just really interesting to get Willson Contreras' perspective, to get Jack Flaherty's perspective after the game as well, with the different things that have kind of popped up over the course of his last couple of post-game interviews. Tonight was a different Jack Flaherty. Nothing bombastic about it. In fact, I found him to be really humble about the whole, the success. He was not in there flaunting, ready to, nothing like that. He was very humble and deflected credit over and over again to Willson Contreras. Again, I think it was important to the team probably and to Flaherty as well to be able to do that and say that Willson called a great game. I don't think he was blowing smoke. I think they were really legitimately on the same page. But the other aspect of it that there's nothing Willson can do to help Flaherty to this point was he had command of his fastball. And I think that is where it begins and ends with Jack Flaherty. The off-speed pitches and the breaking stuff and the curveball and the slider, like those are the put-away pitches that he can navigate a game with. But if the fastball isn't locating the way he wants it to and he can't pinpoint it, those other secondary pitches are going to fall a little more flat. Even if the quality on those pitches is good, there's something to being able to, as a pitcher, get the hitter on their heels, not necessarily being able to sit on any of that off-speed stuff because they have to protect the plate on all corners when it comes to the fastball. He did a great job of working the top of the zone, bottom of the zone. They kept it down, which allows you to then change some eye levels on your hitters. Jack Flaherty had everything working tonight for the Cardinals. A credit to him, a credit to Willson Contreras for the job they were able to do. But the bigger picture, and we will talk, I'm sure, about the offense as people in the comments will want to talk about Nolan, both Nolans for that matter. And maybe we'll get a little love for Kiz, who had his first career grand slam go yard tonight to cap that 10-run eighth inning. But I think for Jack Flaherty, this was a big moment in time, and the question moving forward is if the Cardinals can have that version of Jack Flaherty or even anything close to it, because nobody's going to go out there every fifth day and do that every time, other than, I guess, Jack Flaherty from 2019 in the second half. But realistically, for him to just be locked in as the Jack Flaherty that we've seen when he's at his best, for the Cardinals to be able to add that to their rotation, what does it do? Well, honestly, and this is going to sound maybe a little premature for a team that's still 8 games below 500, but the way I look at it is something like that means that the Cardinals just don't have anything left to fix in the immediate future. They don't. The offense coming up with timely hitting in multiple games, really all 3 games over the weekend against Boston to be able to get that series sweep. They got the series win in Chicago through a nice performance all around by the offense, and then to be able to bring it back to Busch Stadium where the Cardinals were 6-13 coming into tonight on the season, and they put up 18 runs. It's really not about the 18 so much as it is the first 8, because that was really what set this game apart and said, all right, the Cardinals have won this game even before you get into the latter innings and even before James Nail finishes it out with a couple of, garbage time at that point innings based on the way the score had brought them to that point. The fact that the Cardinals were able to score in 3 different innings before you got to the craziness, I think is what the case was there. They lead off with Arenado. They come back with a shutdown inning by Flaherty to say, hey, we mean business tonight. And then they get an RBI from, I believe it was Goldschmidt that drove it in the second inning. Just a really good all-around performance. You could not have drawn it up any better, especially when you consider James Nail, the only reliever that the Cardinals need tonight. How wonderful is that they're able to get another day of rest for the bullpen, a bullpen that we've talked about as having been relatively taxed by the lack of consistency and the ability to navigate deep into ball games from the starting rotation this year. That just wasn't the case tonight, as Jack Flaherty was as good as we have seen him. So welcome into the stream. That's my spiel. Let's get into your comments here momentarily. I would just like to remind you guys that you can follow B. Schaeff Daily on Spotify. The audio-only version of this podcast will be up on Spotify tomorrow. Apple Podcasts should have it as well. Appreciate you guys for doing that. And if you would like this stream, we can get it up to 20, 25, and beyond. Would appreciate that as well for those who haven't done so yet. And subscribe to the channel, because the way we have it set up, that is the way you will be able to comment in the live chat, as many of your fellow Cardinals fans are currently doing. So go ahead and throw me a sub. We're here, I'm not going to say every day, because there's going to be days coming up soon where I won't be doing live streams. But we do a lot of these. We plan to do a lot of these throughout the summer. We plan to have a lot of Cardinals talk that isn't live streams. It's just videos. It's Cardinals stuff. If you appreciate that kind of content, I would love to have you on board. And subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. It's great to have you. And by the way, anybody who subscribes and is brand new, comment that you're brand new and tell me what's up, because I like to welcome the new folks when they join. So appreciate you guys. Quick sip, and we're right into the comments, because I'm sure y'all have a lot to say tonight. Okay. Caleb is going to kick us off. Flair and Willson are the next Yachty and Waino confirmed. Well, we know that Wilson's going to be here for the next 5 years. I think he's got that no trade. I think he's locked in for a good long while. Jack Flaherty is a different story. He's a free agent to be after this season. I think he's really, I think he does like St. Louis, and for all the talk of people saying, oh, he wants to be in Los Angeles or he wants to be somewhere else. I think he gels well with this team. He likes this team. It's a lot more fun when everybody is winning and doing well, right? And so I think that there could be interest after the season about bringing him back, but right now it's just one start at a time, I think, for Jack Flaherty, and then he'll handle that conversation and what the free agency saga is going to look like in the offseason. We know the Cardinals, if they don't bring him back, are going to have to find a way to replace his spot in the rotation. You could do that internally. That's kind of an offseason conversation, or at least later in the campaign, but I would at least say this, Caleb. I think it's confirmed that you'll be seeing Flaherty and Willson a lot more this season, which was maybe a question mark as of a week or so ago, when it just wasn't really clear what the Cardinals' plan for Contreras was. And we never really did get, I think, a full answer about it. If you saw Bob Nightingale's story for USA Today, he had put in there, and didn't source it or anything, but Bob Nightingale, obviously a connected guy. But he said what he had the impression of was that the Cardinals pitching staff basically said they didn't want to throw to Willson Contreras anymore this season. And so some things I think were said behind the scenes, whether it was as simple as that or more complicated. Clearly there was some miscommunication, or I might even just say bad communication, going on between the Cardinals pitchers, between Contreras, and those gaps had to be bridged in one way or another. And I think we have gotten to a point where that has taken place. It was good to see Willson kind of talk a little more openly about the way that conversation in Chicago really was able to be something they could build upon. They could all get on the same page and understand that, for whatever the opinion about Contreras was, off the field, on the field, whatever it was, they all got to see that side of him that they needed to see, to know that whatever the pretense was, it's kind of hard to get a handle on exactly what they were all feeling and thinking. It's great to see Willson Contreras and how much he cares and how much he wants to win, just like those guys do. And I think that was the takeaway. And so they're moving forward, Caleb, and I think Cardinals fans will have the luxury of doing so as well. It was so important that they had this start tonight, because imagine how it would have gone if things had gone the other way. If Flaherty goes out there and you look at what he does in the first inning, pitch count is high, walks a couple of batters. Yes, he's able to navigate it and get out of it, but let's imagine he has 3 or 4 more innings just like that, and maybe coughs up a couple of runs here and there. If it's a 5-walk outing where he doesn't get through 5 innings and gives up 3 or 4 runs, suddenly we're going, oh man, more of the same with Jack Flaherty. Is there going to be another conversation about Contreras and whether he can call a game for this team? What's the situation? No, that's all gone. And I understand the record is not completely gone. The Cardinals are still 8 games under and that's a factor. But they're 6.5 games back of the Brewers. They are even less than that out of a playoff spot. The Cardinals are going to be just fine, I think, is the emphatic statement that was made not only over the past week, but to be able to go back home where you have struggled so far in the year and do it tonight against the division-leading team. I think the Cardinals put the Brewers on notice tonight with the way that they performed in every facet of the game, to just absolutely slug the crap out of them, but also to show that, like, from a pitching standpoint, the Cardinals are also a force to be reckoned with if a guy like Jack Flaherty can go out and be that guy every fifth day. A huge, I don't know if I even would say sigh of relief, but it's a step forward at this point where the Cardinals can kind of be playing with the confidence that they have been developing over the past week or so in this winning the streak that they're on now, right? They lose the final game in Chicago, but they win 2 of 3 there, and now they're riding 4 consecutive wins. They're doing against the team that they need to do it against, because you don't play the Brewers and anybody else in your division for that matter as much as you did in past years because of the balanced schedule. You only get them 12 total times, so you want to take advantage of each and every one of those opportunities. And look, the Cardinals needed a stretch like this to be able to pull closer to 500, to make people believe again, to make them feel like, all right, this was just a bad dream in April and early May from this team. And I really don't know how you could possibly doubt that at this point. All right, Arenado is clearly back. 4 home runs, 4 games in a row, home runs for Arenado. Did it at Fenway. Told me tonight that, yeah, that's a great place to hit for him. But to be able to come back and do it at Busch, do it against the Brewers, and do it in front of the home fans is something that's very critical as well for the Cardinals and their success moving forward. So I think you don't have to worry about Arenado anymore. The numbers are much improved. Take a look now. Yeah, 736 on the OPS. He's going to be back above 800 before you know it, going 2 for 4 tonight, or 2 for 3 tonight, I should say, with the 4 runs driven in. Just really good stuff from Arenado. That home run he hit would not have been a home run at Fenway, I don't think. I don't care what the Would It Dong Twitter account that you might see on there that'll tell you, oh, would it be a home run in all these other ballparks? I would say absolutely not tonight. Arenado, first inning, get the vibes going to begin the homestand. That's what the Cardinals needed. And then, for good measure, they scored 10 runs later on in the 8th inning. So just some pretty impressive stuff from the Cardinals to be able to do what they did tonight. Not only with Jack Flaherty, which I still think him and Willson Contreras ends up being, for me, kind of the headliner of this entire thing, but to score 18 runs and have me say that's not the headliner of the night, you know that something significant happened. So great to see from Jack Flaherty and the Cardinals. But the offense, man, I think fans are excited to see that as well with the home run barrage. Trevor says, needed a statement win and a Jack shove job. 2 boxes checked with authority. Yeah, and to do it against the Brewers, again, like, does anybody look at this Brewers team and think they're particularly scary in terms of the roster? Like, what's scary about the Brewers right now, related to the Cardinals, being honest, I'm just giving you my opinion, is that they're 6.5 games ahead. They've got a head start. But they don't have the roster that the Cardinals have. Top to bottom, I really don't believe that they do. They've got some decent hitters. They've got, Christian Yelich, obviously, their leadoff hitter for the most part. He's got a 765 OPS as we take a look at it on the screen here. Jesse Winker, they traded Colton Wong to get Jesse Winker back into the NL Central, try to recapture some of the magic that he had with the Reds there a couple of years ago. But, 622 OPS. He had a couple of hits tonight, but that's not performing at a high level. Adames has been one of their better hitters. He's their middle of their order kind of guy. OPS is below 700 right now. Rowdy Tellez is probably their best, most impactful power threat, and had a nice night tonight. Cardinals couldn't get him out. 2 for 2 with a couple of walks. His OPS is 873, but look up and down their lineup. William Contreras, the brother of Willson, nice player, solid hitter. Brian Anderson, they just don't have the depth of the threats in their lineup that I think the Cardinals do. If we click over here, Nootbaar is going to OPS, 850 or above this year, I have to imagine. And imagine if he starts hitting with power consistently. Still sitting on 3 home runs, but he goes 2 for 4 tonight, scores 4 times, walks twice. His batting eye is elite. Lars Nootbaar, just an absolute bona fide stud as a leadoff hitter. You couldn't craft a leadoff hitter in the skill set that Lars Nootbaar has any more favorably to that role. He does it so well. Did strike out a couple times tonight, but the OPS is pushing 900 now. He's an on-base freak. quite honestly, and he could end up scoring 100 runs. Like, I don't think that would be crazy to see from Lars at the top of the order. Okay, Goldschmidt is Goldschmidt. I mean, 2 for 3 tonight, couple of ribbies, reached base 4 times. He's going to OPS 900 or above, you have to figure. Gorman is pushing 1,000 with his OPS after a career-high 5 RBIs tonight. We go down the order. Arenado, we've talked about what he's done. He's going to OPS above 800 and probably more like 850 as long as this little streak he's on right now can push him closer to 800. He only needs a couple more days of this to be able to really be right there in the line of fire. So, again, I don't think the Brewers have a single hitter that's Arenado at the plate. I honestly don't. Tellez is really good and more of I say one-dimensional power threat. I think I looked in his average, 256. You kind of are going to sit him around there, and he's going to hit 30 bombs, and that's great. Arenado is just a more complete hitter. Contreras, for as good as things went for him behind the plate tonight, didn't do a lot at the plate, going 0 for 4, but he's going to be a 750 or above OPS guy when it's all said and done. DeYoung is still OPSing above 900. Tommy Edman had a great night, 4 for 5 with 4 runs scored. Had the home run for good measure late on. I don't know if he will OPS 778 for the season. That's where he's at right now after tonight's really great outing from him offensively. But if he's a 750 or above OPS guy, that's your 9-hitter most nights. I mean, the Cardinals are just top to bottom better than the Brewers offensively the way you look at it on paper. And we know these games aren't played on paper because if they were, the Cardinals would not have lost as many times as they did in April. However, I still feel like now you see an offense that's coming around. I have said however many times on this stream, on B Shape Daily, for those who have followed me for a while, you've heard me say it. The Cardinals have the type of build offensively that could lead the league in runs scored this season, and it wouldn't surprise me. I'm talking about all of Major League Baseball. 18 tonight will definitely help pad those stats a little bit as they pursue something like that. But again, if they start to lock in offensively, it's going to be dangerous for the other teams in the NL Central. And we talk about the pitching as well. That is important. That's an important aspect of this. I still say the Cardinals are built like a team that needs to slug to win. But if you get an ace out of Jack Flaherty, which I know, premature to say this after one start, the ERA is still above 5 for a reason. Although I would say take out the 10-run outing because that is such an outlier and it's going to do so many unfortunate things to your ERA as a pitcher. Take that one out, and what are his numbers? He's probably right around Jordan Montgomery, honestly. And Jordan Montgomery's been solid. Miles Michaelis is getting better and better as time goes along. His numbers are going to begin to reflect that the longer he pitches well. And so, you've got to factor in Steven Matz, Adam Wainwright as well. But you just start to see things turning around. And so when I look at Flaherty doing what he did tonight and saying, if that continues, what does this team really have to fix? I know I got to get rid of the facial hair. It's just too much. With the other guys on the rotation, yeah, there have been some anchors kind of dragging things down, but Matz hasn't been one the last 2 outings. Flaherty has only pitched, or I should say Adam Wainwright has only pitched twice and has given up 4 runs each time. But I think overall you're going to end up having Flaherty be at worst a solid middle-of-the-rotation type of arm. Maybe others don't have that belief in Adam Wainwright as of right now, but that's kind of where I sit with him. So if Matz is getting a little better and Wainwright's going to come around and Michaelis has certainly gotten better and Montgomery has been their best pitcher outside of an outing here and there, and if you have Flaherty added to that mix, suddenly the rotation looks a lot different. And I know people are not going to like to hear that because the next time somebody gives up 5 or 6 runs, it'll probably happen this week. We're back talking about the struggles of the rotation. But I think you can at least look at over the past week or so, even though there have been some short outings by guys like Michaelis, they haven't been able to get very deep. Flaherty's wasn't that great in Chicago. They're coming around as a group to where just the terrible outing, they're going to be more few and far between, and at least they're going to have these outings where they can keep the team in games. Because at times they really haven't kept the team in games. They've had the outings where they give up 4 runs in the first, and suddenly your offense doesn't have that sense of confidence that they have a chance to even bother with it tonight, which is human nature to kind of get behind the 8 ball and feel like you've got to do it all and you press, and it's an ugly situation to be in. I think the Cardinals have been in that situation several times throughout this season, and Ollie Marmol talked about tonight the shutdown inning from Jack Flaherty, not only to have a shutdown inning where, like, the definition of that is you score runs and then your guy goes out there and shuts them down, they don't score, but to do it in the way that he did, how much confidence does that add to an offense that says, hey, let's add on for this guy because we're vibing tonight? Like, that's the type of tone that a starting pitcher of Jack Flaherty's caliber, pitching the way Jack Flaherty did tonight, can bring to the table and set for the rest of his teammates. And so he does, and then immediately Paul Goldschmidt doubles in whoever the hell he doubled in there in the second inning to just keep the vibes rolling. The Cardinals scored tonight in 4 different innings. They got the runs there in the 6th inning where Nolan Gorman punctuates that inning with the bases loaded double. Up and down the lineup, really good things. Kisner with the grand slam to I just love that he got that against the position player in the 8th inning. Like, at a certain point, I was thinking, all right, we know the Cardinals won this game. I'd like to get home at a decent hour, do this stream, finish up the writing I've got to do, and get to bed. So maybe the Cardinals, you could just like let this one go. But as it's going along and it's getting to be, they're batting around and this is pretty cool. At that point, you're like, all right, they're bringing in a position player. Kiz has to send him deep here. And he did. Got that grand slam. He's now close to 700 on the OPS. That doesn't hurt. They all count, baby. They all count. So I was happy to see that for Andrew Kisner. But you just got to feel really good right now if you're a Cardinals fan. Don't look at the record. Like, looking at the record might make you feel a little bit sour again. But I just think with the way the last week, 8 days now have gone, you can just look across the roster and see so many signs of things improving compared to where they had been. And even though the record is what it is, the fact that nobody else is running away with this division, like, that's what's so important right now, is to win the Central. To do that, you've got to be able to catch the Brewers, right? I don't look at the Pirates as a threat. The Cubs could be sneaky. I'm not going to count them out of the playoff hunt, but I think maybe wild card at best, and they've got to have a lot of things go their way. But when you face the Brewers, you've got to take advantage of those opportunities right now and do it as quickly as possible. Like, this is a great time on the schedule for the Cardinals to be facing Milwaukee, honestly, because they've come off this road trip where they played so well, and you can try and capitalize off of that. I know the Brewers swept the Royals over the weekend. I get that. But the Brewers are the one team that I think you've got to be able to show, like, hey, we're a factor. You got to worry about us. Hi, we're the Cardinals. Like, that's what I feel like they did tonight. They put Milwaukee on notice a little bit. And now it's going to be a matter of, can you close it out, not only with a series win, but like a series sweep would go a long way as well to, making the leader of the NL Central basically be a 500 team at this point. It's not a strong division. The Cardinals, I think, have the best roster in the division, but the closer and the quicker you can make that gap disappear, the more it becomes easy to have confidence about the way the rest of the season could go. But they're not playing like a team right now that knows they're 6.5 back. They're playing like a team that's right in the mix of things and expects to be. And that's the difference that I think we've seen over the past week or so. Aaron says, man, if only they could score more runs. 18 was that's your allotment for the series, right? Like, you need to not have a situation where you say, oh, save some for tomorrow. No, go back tomorrow and attack Wade Miley, the type of guy that the Cardinals should be able to solve. Soft tosser, all of those aspects, but don't take anything for granted. Go out and grind the at-bats and do it again tomorrow. That would be the way that I would prescribe for the Cardinals. But, 18 runs was impressive. Blue Jays Rock wants to know if Nolan Gorman could be an MVP candidate if he played every day. I'm going to say no. And the reason for that is because I don't know if playing every day, playing against lefties, is necessarily going to be the thing that vaults him, because I think he should play against lefties at times too. I think the Cardinals should find a way to integrate that. But with this roster in 2023, can we just be honest about the fact that it's going to be tough, especially if you want Jordan Walker back at some point. If you want, you expect to probably get Tyler O'Neill back. Right now, you've got Dylan Carlson on the mend a little bit. We may see an IL stint for Dylan Carlson. Kind of remains to be seen. But that wouldn't necessarily be a surprise. Just to give him, even if it's only a week injury for 7 days, it's going to affect him. You can just go IL for 10 days and make sure he's fully healed by the time he comes back after spraining his ankle over the weekend. I believe that was Sunday night's game against the Red Sox, in which he left that game early with the sprained ankle. But, for where the Cardinals are right now, you've got Nolan Gorman in there against righties every day. You know that's going to be the case. To put him in there against lefties, I think should happen, because we've talked about it kind of stunts your development as a potential, perennial all-star kind of offensive piece that Nolan Gorman can be. Stunts his development if he's not able to face lefties regularly for multiple years at a time. Like, they protected him last year. He's the captain of the platoon team this year with the way that they're using him, clearly kind of keeping him away from those lefty at-bats for the most part. Would he be an MVP candidate? I guess the numbers right now dictate yes. Like, if I think he's going to OPS 979 and homer at the same rate that he has, he's going to homer well over 30 times in that case. He's going to, be near 1,000 on OPS. Probably going to drive in, even as a 70% player, not playing against lefties, drive in close to 100 runs to check out where he is right now in that category. Like, I understand the question. I just think you can't assume that his numbers against lefties would be exactly what they've been against righties, because there has been some deficiency there in the moments that we did see him against lefties last year. Now, do I think he's a much better hitter with where he is and the progress that he made in the offseason? Absolutely. And there does come a point where you just have to play him every day. But the Cardinals are built in such a way that they can afford kind of not to, because there are other guys that can mash lefties, and you want to be able to stack your lineup in those days. And so I'm not entirely sure if the Cardinals are going to find the room in their lineup, at least this season, to do it regularly. But, like, okay, Wade Miley tomorrow is almost a perfect example. A guy who doesn't throw super hard. Like, Nolan Gorman should be in the lineup tomorrow. I think it would be almost a disservice to him not to have him in there, because, again, it's a factor of, can he get the development that he deserves? The Cardinals are trying to win now, and so that's a factor. You have to try and balance two things at once. I understand and recognize that can be a difficult thing. But I think at the end of the day, it's one that the Cardinals probably owe to him to eventually allow him to have that development. So we'll be interested to see, I think, tomorrow, if that ends up being something he's given a chance to do. Again, find the lefties and pick them strategically for when you get Gorman involved would be the way that I would phrase it. I think it is Wade Miley tomorrow, right? There's no better guy to do it against than to throw him in there. But we'll see what they end up doing. 33 RBIs, though, as you see there on the screen, and 120 at-bats. Like, yeah, I shouldn't have answered so emphatically in the negative when it came to the notion of Gorman MVP candidacy. But I'm just focused on all-star bid first, because that was my bold prediction for the Cardinals season. And you know what? I like being right about stuff. So that would be kind of cool to see him do that. But yeah, I get the notion of wanting to have him against lefties. The Cardinals don't seem to want to talk about it a lot right now. There's a question by Benjamin Hockman asked tonight of Ollie, where he kind of slid in there, hey, do you think you could do this against lefties and righties? And, didn't answer that part of the question, but focused on the good things that he is showing. And so, yeah, eventually it needs to happen. If your guy is good enough to bat third on a given day, you think he would at least be good enough to bat in the lineup on the other days. So we'll see if the Cardinals allow it to happen. MVP candidate, I guess the numbers, if you bear him out, Blue Jays rock, would dictate that. But I think he would fall off a little bit in the overall numbers. Wouldn't be quite as robust if he had even a 600 or 700 OPS against lefties, which wouldn't be great. But it would definitely drag his numbers down a little bit. So it's hard question to answer, but there's no doubt that the things that he's doing right now are very impressive. Like the stream, guys. I appreciate that we're up to 34. Let's get it up to 40. I believe in you. And if you believe in me, we can do some magic together. And if you want to subscribe to the stream and to the YouTube channel, Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer, is the title of the channel. Would appreciate you doing that. And the bonus is you would then be able to chat in the live chat with all of your fellow Cardinals fans who are celebrating tonight's win. That's a statement win if I've ever seen one, says Asher, all caps. It's a statement. Milwaukee's got to know what's coming, and it's the Cardinals. And Ryan says, that's the last place Cardinals. Thanks for coming out, Milwaukee. That's a good old thanks for coming out, Dan Evans, if I've ever seen one. And that's a joke for two people, and only one of them are in the stream right now. So Allison stayed awake just for this. I appreciate you for doing that, Allison. You are a star. And is Jack back? Jack was absolutely dealing tonight, we see from Asher. Allison, I think it's premature to say he's back after one start, but it is certainly encouraging to see that version of him. And if you see it for even one more time, I'd be willing to say, guys, look out. One time, I say, it puts you on notice. Keep an eye on what he does his next time out. But remember, that 2019 season when he was so fantastic, it didn't happen at the beginning. He was sitting around like a, high 3, low 4 ERA, I think, at the beginning of July, and then absolutely turned it on. I think it was a start out in San Francisco, and from there he was off the sheet. Fantastic the rest of the year. Gibson-esque over that second half. Add a couple more starts of looking like he's looked, and I would say we could be in the midst of seeing Jack at his finest once again. he's always maintained that, yeah, that was great, that second half of 19, but that's what I believe I'm capable of when healthy. And so, he had those couple of years where he wasn't healthy. It started in 2020. It wasn't a health issue then, but a factor of the Cardinals just trying to keep him healthy. It backfired a little bit. They didn't get the most out of him until later on in that season. The rhythm was off. I think that was true for a lot of people back in the COVID era. But then 21, 22, just going through the different injuries and not able to contribute in the way that he knows that he can when healthy. This year has been different. Like, I think he's fully healthy. You can talk about the velocity. That was the big talking point the last time for him. I don't think we saw any Jack Flaherty in the upper 80s tonight with the fastball. He was pumping low 90s and touching like 95, 96, I want to say, was the peak of what he was able to do tonight. So the velocity on the fastball was not an issue. Yes, he wants to dial back and add on as time goes on, and that was kind of what he said in the last time when he was a little touchy about talking about the velocity. But let's be honest, if you have the ability to pinpoint and command it at 92, 93, you're not going to ever throw it at 88. That was a product of him searching for it as he's had to. But now if you're able to say, hey, I'm going to sit 92, but I'm going to pump it to 95 or potentially even a little bit above that when the situation calls for it as well, that's a Jack Flaherty that's going to be pretty unhittable. Because, again, the off-speed stuff and the breaking stuff is going to play off of that if you're pinpointing and locating your fastball. And his fastball does have some good ride to it. It's got movement to it. And that at times has been, I think, what's made it tough for him to command it all the time. Because if it's moving in ways that you don't necessarily anticipate and you're missing arm side, as he often has tended to do when he's not quite dialed in, like those are things that can happen. I feel like that was less of a factor tonight. And then it just exemplifies in your other pitches. Guys can't sit on that stuff, and it's just going to be impossible for them to be able to figure on a given pitch what you're trying to do to them. He pounded the strike zone, just a ridiculous rate of strikes after the first inning. I think he threw more strikes, or I should say more balls than strikes in the first. But after that, it was, 80, 85% of strikes. It was something pretty special from Jack tonight. And that's the way the Cardinals need him to be if they want to end up not only getting to October, but doing damage when they get there. That is a game one starter type of outing that you got from Flaherty tonight if you're the Cardinals. Aaron says, if you have a cat, I think it should make an appearance. I do. I think she's upstairs, though. My wife has gone to sleep, and typically she'll saunter in, sleep on the foot of the bed, like the good kitty that she is. But, that I think it's back there. That's her cat tower that she likes to look out the window at. So she's great. And like I've said before, if anybody knows the name of my cat, bonus points to you. And if anybody eventually says, hey, I know it, and I've heard you say it before, and this is what it is, then I will tell the story of how the naming of the cat came to be. My hint would be somebody hearing the name of the cat might just think, oh, what a homer. This guy's not a real journalist. That's my one hint I'll give you. But yeah, I don't think she's going to come down tonight. Asher says, side note, Waka just blew a no-no 8 1/3. That sucks. I knew he was deep into that game with the no-hitter going. The guy can't catch a break. I remember when he was real close. I think it was like 1 out away one time for Michael Waka. I think I remember being at the Mizzou Student Center watching that. You hate to see that, but you also like to see him pitching well, right? Everybody, I think all Cardinals fans, you root for Michael Waka, even though he's not with the team anymore. Always a good guy to root for. Connor says, what's up? Christopher, usually during a game like this, I hope we don't lose 1-0 tomorrow. But then thought, no, they need a statement win against the Brewers with an offensive thumping and an excellent start by Jack. Yeah, it's only one game, but you got to be a little demoralized if you're Milwaukee after one like that, right? Like I would have to imagine. Connor says, damn, Waka on my fantasy team. I didn't even know. Yeah, well, congrats. You had a nice outing from him tonight. The Cardinals now have a better run differential than the Brewers. Oh, it's always with the run differential. Before this game, the Brewers were 30 runs ahead of them from Lego Chicken Guy. What's up, Lego? Yeah, I mean, you go 17 in one direction, 17 in the other, and that is a gap that could be tidied up rather quickly. I believe the Cardinals have a positive run differential now, despite still being 8 games under. But, hey, is what it is. And Connor said, unfortunately, though, it is the rules that the Cardinals will now be shut out tomorrow. They shouldn't be. I mean, if we can be honest about it, they shouldn't be. Let's see if we can get a little bit of Wade Miley action on the analytics, Swish Analytics site that I like to use. What are we on here? May 16th. That is today, but for this, it'll say tomorrow. Let's see if we can get a little action. I kind of want to know, like, what have the Cardinals done against Wade Miley, and can we expect them to maybe have a good day tomorrow? My internet is so slow. It's unbelievable. I'm not giving you props right now, T-Mobile. Actually, let me take that back. For those who were on the stream a couple of nights ago and you saw it just go kaput, I don't believe that the issue was the internet so much as it is my computer. And now I'm getting no response. And so if this ends up just being a bust, it's a bust. This is what I deal with, man. But I don't think it's my internet right now. It's my computer. My computer is a problem. And it's not even that old, but it just, the trackpad doesn't want to respond. Things are rough. I'll try to get back to things rolling here in a minute, but I don't want to lose the stream entirely, so I might have to really buckle down on what's going on here. Yeah, this is nice. This is not a good advert for T-Mobile, is it? It's not a good advert right now for what's going on with that. Come on, we're so close. I see Wade Miley in the background. It's the computer, though, guys. I apologize. We'll get it back, though. We'll get it back going. No, I don't care about that. I want to look at this. There we go. Hopefully that was not too tumultuous of a ride to find what's going on there. All right, scrolling down. Let's find a little Wade Miley action for the Brewers. This could have been a lot better. Jordan Montgomery going for tomorrow. For the Cardinals, you saw that flying through there. I know I didn't pass him. There we go. All right, we got Contreras. Has some decent numbers against him, it looks like. OPS and close to 1,000. Arenado's hit him well. Goldschmidt's hit him well. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason the Cardinals don't thump this guy tomorrow. Paul DeYoung, even with a little bit of a OPS action there, 500 slug against him. Yeah, Kiz has even done some, 2 for 7. And Tommy Edman. So pretty good. Pretty good stuff there against Wade Miley. I feel like, yeah, the Cardinals should be able to lock in tomorrow and have another game like this. So I'm predicting it now. The Cardinals will not be shut out tomorrow. I know that is typically the way these things go, right? When you have a game that you score 18, they say the next day, don't waste all the runs in one day. Well, maybe that's what they did. I think that's not what happened. I think that tomorrow they're going to be fine. How about that? Visual tedium. Gorman laying off the high heat, then hitting bombs is so good to see. Yeah, I've talked about this before where in the press box sometimes we'll play the game of you can call yard on one pitch per game. And I used mine on Gorman's 3-2 pitch that he hit the double in, I think it was the 6th inning, because I felt like if you get Gorman into a base load situation where he knows he's getting a strike because they can't pitch around him, there's nowhere to put him, Nolan Gorman has the advantage in those spots because he's such a good pure hitter. He's a power threat. He's ridiculously talented at the plate. And you know what's coming basically at that point. Yeah, good luck to the pitcher in that situation. But to set up that situation, he was able to get into the full count because of the ability to lay off some pitches. And then obviously the home run that he hit later on. The game was out of hand by that point, but you like to see it, don't you? Career high 5 RBIs in the same game for Nolan Gorman. And Connor forgot to snap a pic of the Gorman card that he has today, but get to snapping, my friend. Send it to me at BSchaeffer12 on Twitter. Aaron, do I tune into prospects after dark when Kyle does that? I think I should do a Kyle appearance, a guest appearance, and it should be after dark. He'll have his shirt off if it's after dark, which does scare me a little bit. Yeah, I've jumped into to Kyle's stuff before. I haven't recently. I haven't seen it fly across my screen recently, so I don't know how often he's been doing them. But certainly I've enjoyed hopping in the comments section from time to time on that. And still to this day, B-Shape Daily is the podcast that I do, guys. And I'll have guests on very rarely. One time I had the Battlehawks kicker on there like a couple of years ago. Like typically it's easier for me to just do it myself because it's at odd hours. But Kyle's the guy who will probably come on at odd hours as well. So maybe that'll work out. But to this day, the most listened to episode of B-Shape Daily, when I look at the analytics, is a Kyle episode that we did spring training, I think, this year. So, yeah, he's a fan favorite for sure. And if I could figure out how to do a live stream with another person, I think I'd have to get like a subscription to StreamYard or Restream. And Brandon Kiley of 101 ESPN has told me I need to do that anyway, and he's probably right. So when I get the technical stuff worked out a little bit more, Aaron, I would say that'll be when I start to maybe try to see about having some other folks on because I know people would enjoy hearing somebody besides me talk. Believe me, I would enjoy it too. Asher declaring it's Kisner season, everyone, and a happy Kisner season to you and yours. I agree with that. Wasn't 8 1/3, but threw 7 for Waka. Still pretty good. They needed Kiz in the lineup. Clearly, people are talking. Was Contreras debacle all about Kiz's offense? You joke, but that's what Ollie Marmol said initially. Like before the big blowout happened on Saturday when the cat became out of the bag and they said we're not catching Contreras right now. The reasoning that Ollie Marmol gave for why Kisner was playing so much was that they liked him in the matchups against lefties. And it was like, if you look back, the 8 starts or whatever previous that he had, more than half of them or something were against lefties. So there was maybe some validity to that at the time. Clearly, there was more going on with Contreras. Will we ever find out the extent of it? Probably not the full extent, but I think it's clear there was some communication issues between him and the rotation, and there may have been guys who said they didn't want to throw to him. That was what Bob Nightingale put out. I don't know if that was a rotation-wide or a pitching staff-wide mutiny. That would be pretty crappy. But I do think there was some validity to communication was not as good as it could have been, and it feels like moving forward that has been addressed. And Contreras comes off as a really genuine guy. He really does care. He wants to win so badly. It's a wonder they weren't able to bridge that gap a little sooner. But hey, it's in the past now. It's happened, and I think the Cardinals are going to be better for it. Now, all that being said, they could have handled it so much better as a team with the way they explained it, with the planning and the communication with Contreras that they were going to do it that way. I'm never taking them off the hook for that. It was a debacle that didn't need to be. It didn't need to go that way. But the messaging was so downright abysmal that it ended up turning into a national story. And, the rest is history. But here's the important part, and it was the entire time. The important part was it doesn't have to define the Cardinals season, and it can turn out for the better that they take 10 days or so. And I always thought it was going to be a short stint like that. I didn't think it was going to last. I had told you guys on an episode that it would shock me if within the next 2 Wainwright starts, he didn't get at least an outing, and the idea that he wouldn't be the regular catcher before the end of May. I figured it would be less than a month that this would be an ordeal. It ends up being a week and a half, and Jack Flaherty comes out front and center and says, I want to be the one to catch him first. I think that was an important optics move after maybe the optics of having Willson banned from catching shortly after that 10-run outing from Flaherty, where Flaherty, after the fact, had made the comment to the effect of the rotation, the pitching staff right now are throwing pitches that don't make sense. That was maybe the smoking gun from that post game that he had on May 4th against the Angels when he gave up the 10 runs in 2 1/3. But you could have read that as Flaherty just being hard on himself and the rotation saying they're not executing pitches, and you'd be right. But an alternative reading of that was, it kind of threw his catcher under the bus if he's saying they're throwing pitches that don't make sense. There was obviously some communication going on, right? It's better now. I think the Cardinals can move on from it. Right now, all they have to do is fix the losing record that was created by some of the trouble they had early on. And it wasn't just that, I think, plaguing this team. The runners with scoring position stuff was bound to bounce the other way in their direction. It has begun to certainly do so now. But the team you saw over the last 8 days, if you're telling me that's not the best team in the NL Central, find me the roster that is, because that's sort of what the Cardinals we thought could do. As of really that first series against Toronto, I thought, this team is good in all aspects. The pitching may be a little suspect in the rotation, but I think it's enough to get them by if the offense keeps performing like this. I think this team lost confidence, honestly, in April, and now it's really turned back the other way, that there's reasons to be confident about basically every aspect of this Cardinals roster right now. So it's really good the way things are going, and we'll see if they're able to keep it up. That's a great quote from a great point from Lego Chicken Guy, that the Cardinals had their first 10-run inning since the Game 5 of the 2019 NLDS against Atlanta. Yeah, that was an impressive day. And this one felt not quite like that because it wasn't in the playoffs and the game had already been decided. But it was an emphasis and proof of concept of what this Cardinals offense is capable of doing. They can be relentless, and they've got a lot of dudes in that lineup 1 through 9 that can do it. Good to see. J. Rose said they absolutely raked today, and Jay Flair looked good. Finally, huge game. And Connor loves Kyle Reese, which you should. He's a good dude. Trevor says that Monty needs to go 8 tomorrow.
No, he doesn't need to go 8, but it would be pretty nice to see, right? Because then you can look at it and go, all right, I can see the writing on the wall a little bit of the fact that this Cardinals team does maybe have more in their rotation than we thought. Like, that would be a nice sign from Monty tomorrow. He's got to bounce back from his last outing. It doesn't have to be 8, but if it could be 6 and fewer than 3 runs, the bullpen's very well rested at this point. You can go with your top flight arms in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. I think that's the recipe tomorrow. If just get through 6 if you're Montgomery, get back on track. And it's sort of like a pass the baton situation now, right? Like, we haven't seen that from the rotation much this year. I kind of asked Jack Flaherty tonight if his start can be one that can jumpstart that sort of situation for a rotation that hasn't, locked it in until this point. And he said, well, Miles really started that yesterday, which is fair. 6 innings that were good from Michaelis in that one. But I think Jack's was the first that you could really look at and go, this was the kind of dominance that the next guy goes, I want to try to replicate that. And that's what the Cardinals have really been lacking. So we'll see if Montgomery is able to pick up the baton and maybe get a little bit of, we've seen those competitions internally. It's not really a competition, but it's the starter the next day saying, I want to do what the guy did yesterday, but I want to be better by just a little bit. And you're able to keep rolling that way. And with this offense, it's almost going to feel, if the Cardinals can accomplish that in their rotation, I'm telling you, it's going to begin to feel like it's too easy for this Cardinals team. It may not happen that way. The rotation may struggle. And I think if it does, that'll be the thing that sets them back. But I think the offense is in a spot where it can continue to build on some of the momentum that it has built. The at-bats just feel night and day different from where they were at times during the struggles of April and early May. So keep taking good at-bats. Good things are going to happen. Aaron says, does the combo of DeYoung's resurgence and Mason Wynn at AAA make Edman a trade asset if a team with pitching likes him? I guess in theory, but I wouldn't trade Tommy Edman. I think he's important to what this team does. So no, I would. Again, it's going to make sense because you guys are just doing the roster math at that point, but that is not a way that I view it. I think he's an important part of the Cardinals winning games right now. And I like, if you're getting a superstar pitcher for Tommy Edman, which I just don't know I just don't think that lines up with what other teams are going to be willing to or looking to do. I get the question. Right now, it would surprise me. I don't think Tommy Edman is the kind of player you trade. I think he's the kind of player you build around, and they've got him team controlled for several years to come. So, no, I think he's like Gorman, I get, is a power hitter that, a lot of guys aren't. Tommy Edman homered tonight, and he hit his 6th home run of the year. Tommy Edman is on a pace right now to certainly clear 20 home runs, and that is, Tommy Edman hits 20 home runs this year. I don't know, and I get that his defense has been lesser, and so that might hurt the wins above replacement metric, but he's going to, over the course of 162 games, be a good plus defender in the middle infield wherever he plays, even though he's kind of been, I saw that he was like negative defensive runs saved earlier in the year. He's a good fielder, and over the course of time, that will show up. And so for me, if Tommy Edman's hitting 20 home runs, that's a 5 or 6 wins above replacement kind of player, at least, even without Gold Glove defense showing up day to day. And I think the Gold Glove defense will be there for him ultimately. So, yeah, I get the question. I think I'm not saying pump the brakes on Mason Wynn, but just like let him develop. And the Cardinals, if he gets here and he's ready, that'll be a conversation. But I just don't think it's a one to really have at this point. And Connor says, I hate to trade Edman. Yeah, so do the Cardinals. He's not on the block. They're not looking to move him. So, and DeYoung, keep in mind, he's not going to be here next year. Like, I guess that's a mean way of saying that. If he ends up OPSing 900, the Cardinals would be foolish not to want to keep him. But I just feel like he'll trail off a little. He could still have a very good offensive season. But then you look at it and go, all right, it's a club option that's kind of prohibitive. I don't know if it's $20 million or what it is, but it's probably more than they're going to pay Paul DeYoung, right? And so he ends up becoming a free agent. Mason Wynn may be ready at that point to be a big league shortstop. Edman, despite the fact that he's done nothing wrong really, except for have a really good defensive effort at short and hit the crap out of the ball this year like he has, he probably gets boxed into second base again. Nolan Gorman switches off with him and plays a lot of DH as one of the team's best hitters. Like, that Cardinals team is really good. Paul DeYoung, I think the Cardinals love what they're seeing from him. But because there have been stretches like this in the past, I think the team internally would be a little more wait and see as their attitude. And if he does it all year, then you do have a conversation because he's a player they like. He would like to be here, I'm sure. And then it's like, what do you do? That gets a little tricky. But I think for right now, it's just let's see Paul DeJong week by week do what he's doing. And if that ends up being a conversation at the end of the season, it's a huge, awesome thing that maybe most people didn't expect. So I don't think you trade Tommy Edman is my short version of the long stuff I just said. Aaron mentioned something interesting. He says, I like that Jack had that connection with Bob Gibson. It makes me root for him extra. And, like, that's something that's, when you talk about free agency and stuff, that, like, is not lost in this conversation, that Flaherty had those connections to the Cardinals and like, what it meant to be a Cardinal and learning from guys like Bob Gibson, that I'm not saying he'd never want to come back. It's just, it seems like it's been a rocky tenure for the last few years. Not similar to DeJong, but similar in that, like, the Cardinals want to see Flaherty, I think, do it for a full season. And then if he does, they'd love to have him back. But then he'll have the leverage to maybe say, yeah, but I could probably get a lot of money from someone. So are you going to match my value? And that'll be a conversation. But yeah, rooting for Jack Flaherty is easy to do when he's pitching like he did tonight, no doubt. J. Rose says if Monty gives us 6+ of solid pitching, solid bullpen, offense can produce, that's a series win tomorrow. And then it becomes really important to sweep. Because if you get the first two, you're within 5.5 games. A sweep means you take a 7.5 deficit down to 4.5, right? But if you don't sweep, then you're back to where you are right now at 6.5. So just the swing that third game could be if they win the first two, it does a lot. It does a lot to guarantee that you win while simultaneously guaranteeing that your chief competition in the Central can lose. That would be huge. But yeah, got to win the second one before you win the third one. Connor says that Cardinals fans are a bipolar bunch, and you sure are. Y'all sure are. But when you win as many games as the Cardinals are winning right now, it makes sense to be happy. So yeah, J. Rose says that Jack is far from Gibby. There's no comparisons. That's not what he meant. There's a connection with the relationship that Jack and Gibby had that I think was being referenced there. Yeah, I mean, he has not had the longevity or the dominance of a career of Bob Gibson, but also, like, nobody has in baseball history. There's a few, but Bob Gibson's one of the best. Asher, you did call Jack Wash last night. Eat those words. I was wrong on that one, LMAO. Yes, you were. I like that you were the one to bring it back up. Brent says, seeing how all the guys were praising Willson, getting the ice bath was really cool. This team loves him. The ice bath happened. I kind of missed it, but I heard people in the press box talking about it like right after, and I kind of looked down. I was typing a tweet, and so I didn't see it. But I do believe that was a thing that occurred. And yeah, rally around Willson Contreras is an easy thing to do. I mean, when you look at the way he's played the last week with the job DHing, pissing off Kenley Jansen, getting him off his game, helping the Cardinals win from the position he was told he was going to play as a hitter only, and then to catch a gem tonight from Jack Flaherty, I mean, that is vibes. We're living in a vibes economy. I keep saying it, and this was the vibe the Cardinals needed to say, all right, it's not like the team had a question, but as an outsider watching it, you go, you had a great road trip. Can you play well at Busch? Can you show the fans at home what they've been watching on TV? And the answer tonight was yes. And so I just think they're going to continue this run right now because you look at every aspect of the roster. What are you going to fix? What are you trying to fix right now about this team? They just have it rolling in a way that didn't even seem possible when they were in the throes of it and everybody wanted them to fire the manager. Remember that, like, if you're one of the people who was saying that, what do you think now? I'm still getting comments from people like, still fire Ollie. Like, this is going great, but fire Ollie. I'm like, are you joking? Give me a break. Get a grip. I get the record is bad, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to look back at the fire Ollie talk from the beginning of the year, and I get that there was some things that weren't going well. They were losing a lot of games, but I'm almost, if they can finish off the Brewers and have a really good series win, perhaps a sweep, I'll be ready to talk about all the early season angst as past tense. And I mean, within the past couple of weeks, there have been times where people were looking at and talking about it on the stream and going, stop saying it's early. This team is cooked. It's crazy how quickly things can turn around. They still have a ways to go. I see the record just as well as you do. But I don't think as a Cardinals fan you worry anymore about, well, they need a 96 win pace to get to 84. Like, who cares? That pace stuff, when you're going bad, it's a problem. When you're winning every day, it's like, yeah, the pace, they're on 162 game pace this week. So what's it matter? Like, I just think it's going to be a situation where the numbers with the number of winning streaks that they're going to probably put together, I think it works itself out. But what I will say is the quicker you can get that historic winning streak to get to 500 to like truly legitimately wipe the slate clean is really important. But what are they now? 6 of 7. They're on their way. Remember, guys, they were 10-24. I was still saying, the season's not over, but I acknowledged that time was going to be against them. With what they've been able to put together within the past few days, in the past 8 days it is, time is no longer against them. I mean, they're within striking distance already within this division. They just can't backslide. That's the key. And starting pitching can set the tone. That can be the thing day to day that say, hey, even if we come into a game against a tough Corbin Burns on Wednesday or whatever the case might be, no backsliding for the starting pitching. I think that can be what sets the tone and keeps it there for this Cardinals team. We'll see what they're able to do, though. It's a big one tomorrow. Everyone's big right now when you're playing the Brewers. There's no doubt about that. Connor said, I made a preseason Cardinals wins over 88.5. I assume you meant a preseason bet. And I'm going to be real mad about the first month when they finish at 87 and win the division. Yep, that's probably what's going to happen, man. Like 88 could still be tough to get to. But honestly, I don't know what the live total would be, what they would say on those sports apps and sports books and stuff. But like, I still say this team is handily getting into the mid 80s. And probably above. I don't know if I would tell you right now they're going to win more than 88.5, but 85, 86, I would be surprised if they were below that. Long way to go to get there. They got to win a lot of games, but like you just talking to the players tonight, like Willson, the energy he had, Nolan Arenado, dude, was back to his like hyper Nolan self. I asked him a couple of questions after the scrum had kind of broken up with him, and I had asked him, like, I prefaced it because you don't want to tell a guy like he stinks or he was bad. Like Nolan knows what he was doing, but I prefaced it saying like you had taken some better at bats leading into the Fenway series, which is true. I had been saying on the stream that he was coming out of the slump, but to hit it Fenway Park, and I don't remember exactly how I phrased the question, but my point was that big green target out there in left field, does that kind of open you up and allow things to come a little more easily? And he agreed with the premise. But then, I said it was nice to be able to Pitchers Park, come back tonight, proof of concept, keep it going. Nolan Arenado is back to being himself. Like, I can just tell you with what he looks like when he is just, carefree, loving everything, talking baseball, getting into the nitty-gritty of it. He's back to where you expect him to be, and that's dangerous. You saw, I don't know if people saw this, but Jordan pointed it out to me on Twitter. After crossing home plate on his homer, he gave a big ol' hell yeah to Gorman, who had scored, I guess, on the play, and so that's why he was standing there with the high five. Like, when you've got your best players playing like your best players and your presumptive ace, your presumptive best starters pitching like your best starters, if the Cardinals can keep it going, you can see how the vibes can turn around quickly. But Connor, I hear you. That 88.5 bet, we'll see what ends up happening with that one. To go back to a couple weeks ago from J-Ro, this team has an identity problem, was the quote. Now they seem to be figuring that out. Still unsure what it is exactly, but the identity is solidifying itself. The identity is, like, if I'm the Cardinals and I'm trying to describe my identity and my mission statement, it's like, we mash. We have hitters 1 through 9. There are no breaks in this lineup. That was a line that Brendan Donovan gave earlier in the season, and at the time it felt like it was very true, but then they went on the skid. But there are no breaks in the lineup when the Cardinals are going well. They have starting pitching that can sneak up on you. Like, that's the way I would look at the rotation moving forward if they can dial it in. You're never going to say it's the best rotation in the league. It is a rotation full of veterans that have done it before, that when they are rolling one after the next, it can sneak up on you, and that can be something that frustrates an opposing team. Because if you as a Cardinals fan look at the rotation and say, this collection of guys is pretty just very mediocre. Like, if that's how you feel as a fan, which I still feel like they can be better than that moving forward. But if that's how you feel, imagine how maybe the other lineups feel looking at a series against the Cardinals coming up. They go, these guys haven't really been doing much. We just need to be on our game and get it done. But then, you're scoreless into the 7th, and you're like, all right, yep, that Jack Flaherty, I've seen him before. That sucks because it seems like he's back now. And then Montgomery is certainly a guy that can follow that up tomorrow. So I think the Cardinals are in a spot where they can sneak up on teams with the way their starting pitching has been. If you're just checking the box scores and the ERAs and not knowing that maybe they're about to turn this corner, their starting pitching can keep them in the games. Their offense can elevate them into the lead, and their bullpen is good enough to hold those leads. That's the identity, and identity is taking advantage of every opportunity to score, to better your chances to win. That means doing the stuff that Contreras does in the batter's box to piss off Kenley Jansen. It means making the base running play that Brendan Donovan made on Saturday, I think it was. It means taking the extra base. It means stealing a base from first to second to put guys in scoring position. Clearly, the Cardinals think it means bunting more, because I'm telling you, there was a meeting that happened, there had to have been, about, hey, if the bunt's there, take it, because they've been bunting more than I would like to see them bunt necessarily, but sometimes it's been working out. They are finding that identity, to your point, J-Row, and I think it's one that is solidifying. And as long as, remember earlier in the season, it was whack-a-mole. We were talking about, it seemed like every night it was something different that would cost them or that would hurt them. And when you'd think, oh, hey, we've got this situation that is now under control, the next situation would go away and make things tough. And suddenly you just had to put out another fire on a different area of the roster. Now it's like the offense seems to be locking in. They're hitting with runners in scoring position. They're hitting in general. The bullpen's been really good. The rotation we knew was going to kind of be the thing lagging behind. But if that turns into a strength, your St. Louis Cardinals are going to be a force. That's the way I look at it. And from an identity perspective, too. B-Berg says, love our chances of a series win. Need the win tomorrow with Burns looming in Game 3. Yeah, it would be nice for the Cardinals to be able to win against Wade Miley, who's a lesser starter than Burns. And then you'll be able to look at it and go, Burns is house money at this point. Like, it's not, because the difference, again, is still 4.5 game deficit versus a 6 game deficit. But it would basically be a house money situation because the series win would have been secured. And then I think that could allow the Cardinals to loosen up a little bit going into Game 3 because they'll be at 5.5 back. The worst they can be is 6.5 back, which is where they are tonight. Rather than maybe you lose 2 in a row and suddenly you've lost ground on a team you don't get to play that many more times this season. So it's I think it's important to see them be able to win Game 2. Why does it say Peralta is the winning pitcher? It doesn't. That's a wild pitch on the box score, which I don't know what you think about it, guys. Let me know what you think of the visual aspect of the stream the last couple of nights. If you like it more, that I'm putting some box score stuff up there for y'all to look at instead of just me. There's a lot more that I can do. I just haven't learned how to do it yet. And so that's all kind of going to be coming in time. But let me know what you think. And if there's any suggestions that you have, people have suggested, hey, have guests on. I'm like, yep, I want to do that eventually, but don't necessarily count on it too soon from now because it's a learning process. I'm just focused on getting those 1,000 subscribers, honestly. That is I wake up thinking, how can I get to 1K? It's about monetizing. Yes, that's a factor in this. I love you guys. I wouldn't do this for free for my whole life, spending an hour and a half and then another hour editing and doing stuff after the fact every night. I'm doing it because I'm trying to build up my career. And so you guys can help me do so by subscribing to the channel and continuing to like and watch and all of those wonderful things. But yeah, I'm definitely tinkering with some things and trying to make it better. So let me know what you think of the new visuals. I just like that my face is smaller. So, when I scratch my mustache, it's less embarrassing, that kind of stuff. Christopher says, Cardinals had a run differential of -10, and now it's +7. Incredible and insane. And good to see the lineup up and down click. Like, that's the team I thought they would be at the beginning of the year, is just a lineup that you had no breaks. And they collectively did not have the approach, the mentality, the confidence to do it. And I think now that it's back, it's something that it's a sight to behold. I'll put it that way. How about the report that Goldie gave a speech before the Cubs series and they've won 7 of 8 since? Yeah, I don't know if that's somebody tweeted that out. I got to do a better job of tweeting after a game, but I'm trying to get back home and do the stream. So I'm trading one medium for another. but Willson actually mentioned that tonight as well. I don't know if that was the first time it had been reported. I think he had told some other reporters that previously. But that Goldie said some words, and that was a question that y'all were asking, right? Who is the guy that's going to step up in a leadership role and not be the quiet leader, but be the guy to galvanize the troops? And again, we think of Goldie as this quiet guy, but he has his finger on the pulse of the clubhouse. I promise you he does. We've seen it time and time again. That's another example. That's another example that they've been locked in ever since. And I don't know what was said there, but it doesn't matter. It's play clean baseball, play Cardinal baseball, and guys were going to come out of this, and he was right. They did. Connor and Ashford both say that buzz cut and auto is insane. Yeah, it's worked for him. And I'm telling you what, he'll probably keep it buzzed for as long as this is the way things are going, because baseball players, they're generally superstitious. Connor adds that Goldie was getting effed by some strike calls tonight. Yeah, it's hard to care about that in 18-1, but you're right. And Trevor says that that proves why wins should not be a pitcher stat if Peralta can be the WP tonight. It's a wild pitch, you goofs. Gorman is on a 44 home run pace. And, yeah, he hardly, like, if you look at it from an at-bat standpoint and a plate appearance standpoint, the pace is probably even better than that, I would think, just because he hasn't played a ton. But, yeah, he'll hit 30, I think. My dad asked me tonight if he could hit 35, and I was like, I don't know why you came up with that number. But I said he'll hit 30 this year. Again, he's bound to go through a little bit of a slower stretch, but the ones who don't, they do become MVPs. So, yeah, I guess let's see what he does. But I just don't want to put that kind of stuff out there yet. But the early portion, the early returns have been very favorable. Yes, he should start tomorrow. That's kind of going to be what I'm watching for when the lineup comes out. Is Gorman in there against a softer pitching lefty? Doesn't throw 100, doesn't throw mid-90s. It's Wade Miley. That's your opportunity to put him in there. I think they should. I really do. And that's 18-1s without hashtag Everyday Dylan. Hope he's healthy. Don't think he's the healthiest. Again, I think it's a little bit up in the air still what exactly it's going to look like for him, but I think it's a possibility that we see an IL stint tomorrow, and we'll kind of see what happens with the corresponding move. They've only got so many guys. You could do some math on who's on the 40-man that's not that is healthy and not with the team. I think Jeff Jones put it out today that Moises Gomez, that applies to him. They could go. I know people are going to say, hey, Luke and Baker. I'm telling you, Luke and Baker's not getting called up tomorrow. Would deserve a chance, but I don't see it coming. Jordan Walker is obviously the other one that's healthy. But if this is going to be a short thing for Dylan, wasn't the reason they sent Walker down to get everyday at bats. And Tyler's coming back soon. So I think that probably you don't see Walker tomorrow either. But we'll see what ends up happening. Ideally, Dylan doesn't need the IL, but it is a possibility that he would. Brandon said, I wasn't aware Goldie gave a speech. That's good to hear. Sounds like it lit a fire in those guys, and that's what veterans and your best players should do. Yep. There are times to be a quiet leader, but there are times, and Paul Goldschmidt does this as well as anyone, where he has the words that he's a very, pensive guy. He thinks the game, he knows baseball, and he's able to articulate at times. And isn't it something, too, to be said that when a guy doesn't talk a ton, when he does talk and he's got MVP listed after his name, it's like PhD, it's Paul Goldschmidt MVP. When he has that combination of factors, your teammates are going to listen to it and gravitate toward it. They've got no other choice. So effective usage of the speech by Goldie, no doubt. Robert says, surprised they still have 3 catchers on the roster, especially with Carlson banged up. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. They probably won't for long. They may just be waiting for Tyler O'Neill to come back, but Barrera knows the deal. He hardly played. He's going to be back in Memphis soon. Most likely position player to get traded for pitching. I don't think there is one because, again, here's the other thing about the position player traded for pitching. You're talking about a starting rotation piece. Who are they replacing in the rotation? I know what you want it to be, but it's not going to be Steven Matz if he continues pitching better. Like, he's had 2 good outings in a row. I won't say good. I'll say passable outings in a row. 5 1/3, gave up 3 runs, and then, or I should say gave up 1 run, and then the most recent was 3 runs. they're not replacing Steven Matz. He's under contract for 2 more years. If he's pitching like this, they're not replacing him. There was a time this year where I said he could be 1 start away from getting replaced. They might have skipped a start, instead. They're not replacing him. Montgomery, not replacing him. Flaherty, not replacing him, clearly. Michaelis, no. Wainwright, no. So the answer is there isn't a position player that gets traded for pitching unless there's some injuries that happen. And then, you got to figure it. But I'm not talking about that because when you think about trades, they're a team that should trade prospects for pitching if they make a deadline acquisition, because a lot of the guys that are on their team are helping their team. And think about what happened with the Brewers last year when they tried to make an MLB for MLB swap. They got some prospects as well, but they traded Josh Hader and they got Taylor Rogers, I think it was, and he could come be their closer, but it wasn't the same. You don't take away from a winning clubhouse. I don't think that's something they're going to do. So I get the question. Y'all are playing too much MLB The Show, though, with that question, is my maybe not so humble criticism. That's the way I look at it, though. I just don't think it's like, now in the offseason, totally different story, if that's what you meant with the question there, Blue Jays Rock. But in season, no, I just don't see it. They could regroup after the winter or after after October and the playoffs and everything and say, all right, here's where we have a surplus and here's where we have a need. And then we maybe get into that conversation. But I don't look at anybody that's of that group and say, hey, they need to get rid of them. Because they've got guys that are playing well right now. The only guy that's not really hitting to his capability yet is Donovan. But I think he can get there. We certainly saw it from him last year. And they don't want to trade Brenden Donovan either because his versatility and his flexibility to be able to just go out there in the outfield and do what he's doing defensively and be able to be a contributor on offense is something that is hard to find. And it's very valuable when you find it. So I don't think there's a way to answer that question. I don't think they trade a position player for a pitcher. Not during the season. Felix says that Gorman is turning out better than he was forecasted, or what he was forecasted to be, only better. He's supposed to be an ultimate slugger with a bad strikeout rate. He's kept the power, but lost the swing and miss. He is an all-star. Yeah, he will be an all-star, was my bold prediction. I'm hoping that we get to see it happen for his sake and for the Cardinals' sake, obviously. Connor, it's so funny. There will always be a mop-up guy to eat innings in every bullpen. Whether you're up or down by 10, the guy with the least talent comes in. I mean, James Nail is happy to have an MLB opportunity, and it's valuable to be able to have guys that can eat innings and maintain your luxury relievers, your leverage relievers on a given night. So, yeah, there's value to every role, and James Nail filled his tonight without a doubt. No, and he says, no offense to Jamesy boy, he did well. Yeah, it was a little bit suspect there for a minute. For James Nail, gave up a run in the 8th, and it could have been worse, but was able to lock it in a little bit. Why am I showing my Twitter? I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, that's just the way baseball be. The Cardinals still have the worst record in the NL, which is crazy. It's crazy. I believe I saw where if they could win again tomorrow, still have the worst record in the NL, but be only like a couple spots out of a playoff spot, like 2.5 games. Yeah, they have the worst record in the NL. Doesn't feel like it. The NL is weird right now. The bad teams have won more games than you thought they would recently, and the good teams, well, there's only 2 of them. I think it's the Braves and the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are leading the West, right? Everybody else is kind of in the middle. I mean, everybody else. And the Cardinals are in that too. They just have more losses that are tied to their name from the beginning of April and early May. I think the first Flaherty walk may have been because the fastball broke arm side 3 more inches than his average. Some of those may have been paint a few inches to the left. Yeah, for the grave of Einstein, that arm side run has been a problem, and I feel like when he hasn't been able to hone it in past starts, then he feels like the fastball's not doing what it should, and because of that, you can't get to the breaking pitch and have confidence in it. When hitters don't really feel like they have to worry about the fastball, when they can tell you're not throwing it for strikes and throwing it with confidence, they go, okay, I'll pick a pitch. Am I going to go slider, curveball? He hadn't thrown a ton of changeups. Like, they can kind of sit on what they need to look for, and voila, things can end up working out. A changeup he threw tonight, though, looked pretty nasty. I think he should maybe do a little more of that. J-Ro, we need to cook. Do you expect to win. I'm sorry, 1 win to equal 5. Yeah, no, I think he's just making a statement that they still have the worst record in the NL, which is true. But it's crazy that nobody, I mean, the Nationals have risen up. The Reds have risen up. It's wild. Einstein, you know how long the Cards have tried to revive Paul DeJong? No way they give up on Willson catching. No way the Cards give up on Willson catching even in the worst scenario. I don't think anybody said they would. But I hear you. Yeah, they're not going to long-term give up on him. Brenden, most important question of the night. Would you rather have to fight 10 ferret-sized Flahertys or 1 Flaherty-sized ferret? I don't want to fight either of those. But a ferret that is Flaherty size is certainly bigger than me. He's a big dude. I don't know what to make of that. 10 ferret-sized Flahertys would be funny. I picked that because even if I lose, I could kind of like throw one little Jack Flaherty around, and that'd be funny to me. I don't know, that image, because in any other context, he would he like if it was a boxing match between Jack Flaherty and I think he would respectfully decline to partake. Like, he'd feel bad for me. So I didn't expect to hear that question tonight. J Rose says hit the like button. Darn right, we got to 50, so I haven't really had to get on you guys. You guys have been awesome about that. I haven't had to beg like I do sometimes. So appreciate that. Scrolling down here. Asher, Real Talk Brenden, thank you for doing these every night. Love the streams. And if I can't watch live, you watch the following day. I hope you can find some success in doing this. Thank you very much, Asher. I appreciate that more than you know. And a couple of y'all said amen and agree. I'm trying, boys and girls. I'm trying. So thank you guys for supporting. It means a lot. Connor says Cards at 500 by May 30th. Time is a flat circle. Yeah, okay, so to do that, we can do a little bit of math. 14 days left. I don't know. I'll assume there's like one off day in there. So 13 games. They'd have to go 11-2 to be at 500 by May 30th, right? Because 10-3 wouldn't get them there. They would be, and so if it's 14 games, the same concept, it would be 11-3 to go 8 over in their next 14. So do I predict that? No, because that would be ridiculous. But do I predict that they could be, I don't know, within 5 games under by the end of May? Yeah, because right now they're 8 under. So I think they could go +3 the rest of the month. I think they could go +4 the rest of the month. But it's tough, right? Like, even an 8-6 stretch would be a winning stretch. And that would be, that'd be like an 87 or 88 win pace over the course of a season, I'm pretty sure. So those things are hard to come by. But right now it feels like, the world is their oyster when you win 6 of 7 or 7 of 8, whatever they've done. April felt like a bad nightmare, legitimately. That's what Connor said. What about early May? That felt pretty bad too, right, guys? Thank you guys for the compliments, though. Appreciate that. The Cardinals 1 through 5 is actually insane. This is from Trevor. Newt, Goldie, Gorman, Nato, Willson is crazy. And then you have DC, Paul DeJong, PDJ, bottom of the order. Tommy Edman is OPSing 778 in the 9-hole. Like, this is top to bottom one of the very best lineups in the league. There's no way that other teams have guys in their 9-hole doing what Tommy Edman has done with a 778 OPS. Like, it's just, you're not going to find that very often. Paul DeJong is OPSing 900. He won't, but he might OPS over 800. And he's your 6th best hitter. Even doing that, it's special, man. Contreras needs to lock in offensively, but other than that, I think everybody's really vibing in the right direction, and he's going to be fine. You've seen him make a difference even as the OPS has kind of fallen off. Did anyone notice Contreras doing some deceptive tactics behind the plate? Setting a spot and then moving his glove, tap the ground, move the glove during the windup. I didn't notice that because I don't know what you said more of Contreras as the heel from Felix. I don't know what benefit that would be unless you're talking about when there's a man on second, which rarely happened tonight. But one thing that he did mention is that he felt like he started setting a better target for Flaherty after the first inning. And so maybe that was something that they were able to communicate on. But at the same time, it's like, isn't that what's so great about where their level of communication was to where it is now? Like, we know that they maybe weren't on the same page and that they can feel like open enough with one another to, between innings, have conversations, lock in, and just like be good with one another. Willson described that meeting with Jack and Waino and Ollie as an icebreaker for his relationship with Flaherty. We don't know everything that went on with him being benched from behind the plate, talking about Contreras. But if Willson describes that meeting that took place in Chicago between those, four gentlemen, Flaherty, Wainwright, Ollie, Willson, if he describes that as an icebreaker for his relationship with Jack Flaherty, clearly there were some fences that needed mending or had never been built in the first place. But that's not the case anymore. And they both had glowing things to say about the other. So that's a great spot to be in. But the target thing that Felix mentioned, yeah, that was something that Willson said. At least he tried to set a better, more consistent target for him later on. As far as the little tactics, I'm not 100% sure on. Arenado just wanted to give everyone else a head start in the MVP race. Yeah, I thought he would be the team MVP and maybe the league MVP this year. He still could be. He would just have to go nuclear for another couple of weeks to get back to that pace because his OPS is still in the low to mid 700s, sitting there at 736, which is fine. I mean, he's very quickly, with his numbers, making everybody forget where he was, right? So that's an important thing. 4 more RBIs tonight. Where does that put him for the season? We're going to find out. 30. Yeah, he's still on a pace of 100 RBIs. Crazy. Getting the homers up. Yep, he'll be fine. 2 stolen bases is more than I would have guessed. Not fast. Not a speedster. But he can do anything else and everything else on a baseball diamond. No doubt. Trevor makes a good point. Nolan can't give his teammate that much of a head start because Goldie will run away with it. Isn't that great to see? Like, Goldschmidt's not hitting for a ton of home run power this year, but the OPS still at 949 for him, which last year he was, I don't know where he finished, but it was in the 900s. And, yeah, the fact that he's doing what he's doing right now without a ton of power is impressive. And by a ton of power, I mean home runs. Like 7 homers, that's a pace where it's close to 30, but they've played, what's their record? They're 17-25. Is that what it is? So they're a quarter of the way through the season now. And so he's about on a 28, 29, 27 home run pace. As I work to get the damn internet to work. Sorry about that, folks. We'll go back to it in a minute here. But yeah, like he's not hitting like a massive home run pace. He'll hit his 30. Like he'll probably still get to 30. But for Goldie to be doing what he's doing OPS wise is really impressive. And he did it last year, so why should I be surprised? I'm not. Michael says the Cardinals looking more like the kind of lineup that can take turns being the guy. I agree. And if you have a few different guys that are guys on a given night, it can be Gorman, Arenado, and Goldie. Like all those guys going together like they did today, it's not going to be fair to the league. It's just not. Connor, happy that he put some money down on Nolan. He said it looked like garbage preseason until a few days ago. The defense keeps him in it every year. Yeah, I mean, he could easily end up with a 900 OPS when it's all said and done. I think he'll more be in the mid-850s because of the slow start. But again, he's a couple more days of hitting homers and going 2 for 5 or 2 for 4 or 2 for 3 with walks from being to 800. And then suddenly it's like you've got 4 months left. You can absolutely get to that point. So we'll see when it comes to his MVP candidacy. But I did think before the year that was maybe something that could be in his future. And now he's trying to build back toward that. And I think he's in the right headspace to do it, for sure. I need another drink. Sorry, folks. I got to breathe sometimes. I get to talking too fast, and then I can't keep going. If Gorman was doing this as an Oakland A, Mo would be gone. Yeah, but Sean Murphy would be doing really well, too. But you wouldn't have Contreras, so those are the trade-offs, right? But yeah, it is really interesting to think that Nolan Gorman was on that list that reportedly was given to the Athletics. Like Carlson, I get it. Outfield influx, you've got kind of a lot of guys there. They didn't want to trade Nootbaar. That's who everybody wanted. Yepes and Burleson, I get because they're kind of men without homes right now in the field. But the one was Gorman, which kind of confirms my hypothesis from the offseason that, like, there was reason to be concerned about whether Gorman would be playing enough to like stick in the lineup if he struggled. But the thing that we didn't know would be that he's not going to struggle. And so that's why I would have said, yeah, I could see the Cardinals trading Gorman. I did say it at times, but I also thought, well, you'd be giving up on a guy. That could be a bummer, but it takes money to make money. It takes talent to acquire talent. But it was one of those things where I could see the writing on the wall that maybe they would sour on him if he had those stretches like he did at times last year where he lost playing time because of it, where the strikeouts still showed up, but the power wasn't there to counterbalance it. And what would happen if you get too many times of DeYoung coming back playing well, Brendan Donovan hitting well, Edman hitting well, and then, having an outfielder that you need to DH like Tyler O'Neill if he had played well to begin the season. You just have too many outfielders, especially if Jordan Walker shows up. I didn't think the at-bats would be a given, but second day I was in spring training when Ollie was asked, who's really impressed you with the way they've come into camp, and he said Nolan Gorman is one of the first names off of his lips. That kind of told me, okay, this is why they didn't trade him. Turns out they maybe tried to trade him and it didn't end up happening, but it made sense in that moment, the Cardinals see a role for him that's significant. Now he's batting third against every righty they face. We'll see if he starts tomorrow, though. I think he should. We got a few more comments here that I'm trying to get through, more than I expected. You guys have done great, by the way. Make sure you subscribe to Be Safe Daily. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to be able to comment within 1 minute. You can. Subscribe to Be Safe Daily on Spotify and Apple. That was what I was going to say. Okie dokie. Finding my spot on YouTube here in the comments section. Connor was asking the question. Asher was answering it. Can we get a detailed explanation of the curve versus a knuckle curve? Asher says, I believe the regular curve is more 12-6, meant to be a steep lateral drop. The knuckle curve is more of an arching curve. I honestly, that's probably a better explanation than I could give because I don't for sure know the full difference in the way that they break differently. But it's a fair question. I'm the streamer and the writer that'll tell you when I don't know something, and in this case, I don't know the answer, so I apologize. Connor, don't look at the record. Yep, you shouldn't, but there will come a time when it will be safe to do so. No doubt. Trevor says the fastball command was so much better today. That's what he needs to have success, and it's 100% true. It really is. But the curve situation was coming from Einstein, who probably he's been locked in on this pitching stuff, and he knows the stuff. Flaherty threw the knuckle curve notably more than his slider today. Reliance on the curve instead of the slider that made him the future of Flaherty. But I feel like the slider can be a good pitch too. But that was something that I don't think came up in the post game that he was asked about. But it would be interesting to know, and maybe it did come up, but there was a time where somebody's phone was going off and I sort of zoned out. But it's interesting. I like the slider too, though, when he's on, but that's a fair question. He's got a lot of different pitches. That's something else that makes it tough for hitters. You can't sit on any one when you know the fastball's coming and you got to respect it. And when he's got so many variations of his breaking stuff that he can pull out and go to, it makes it really tough on a hitter. And Connor says, I don't understand why we don't just say curve for all of them. Same with a slider versus a sweeper. The spin rate and the different ways that they can get in the nitty-gritty now on pitches, they can have so much data and info on them that they've come up with different variations. Ricky Horton was joking about this, or kind of, old man yells at a clouding about this on the radio the other day, the broadcast, saying there was a guy who said, they were talking about him and said he's only thrown, 4 fastballs all year. And they said, well, what's a sinker if not a sinking fastball? All the names we come up with. I do hate sweeper, though. I think it's a dumb name. I've just said, can we just call it a slider? But when you look at the different reaction to those pitches, it is different. And so that is why they've come up with different names for it. Steve, what's going on? A North Carolina, Tennessee lifelong Cards fan. Nice run of late, if probably a strong pendulum swing to balance out the start. But nice to have Birds baseball. It's fun to watch. Great chat show. Be safe. Thank you, Steven. Steve, I appreciate you for that. Daniel throwing us a free dotem, which is always welcomed on the stream. J-Rose still wants Libertor. Let Matt settle into long relief where they need it. No, it's just not going to happen. I respect it, appreciate it, but if Matz continues to pitch well, they're not removing him. What will happen inevitably is the starter's going to get hurt. I know nobody wants to hear that, but it happens every year. When an injury happens, Liberatore will be the call. I promise you guys. But the piggyback stuff, it's more stuff that we talk about on Twitter and on YouTube than stuff the Cardinals actually even are remotely close to considering. So, just telling you, it's not going to happen. Trying to scroll through because I do have to get this wrapped up. I still got some writing to do, and my voice is kind of going right now. But appreciate you guys for being here. CJ says, need Monty to be strong. Hope last game was just a fluke. Cannot face Burns with an even series. Yeah, because you then run the risk of losing that series, for sure. And if there's a comment I scroll by, I don't get to it, feel free to message me on Twitter at bschaefer12, guys. I want to get to everybody, but we've had a great chat tonight. Mostly no issues, knock on wood, with the technical aspect of it, so that's good. Philip, I haven't seen his comment yet, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to try to read some of y'all that I haven't read yet as we get out of here in the next 10 minutes or so. If Jack pitches similar to tonight the rest of the year, do they sign him to a deal? I'm going to say no, because if he does that, he's a Cy Young candidate. Even with the start that he had, his ERA will be below 3 before you know it if he keeps doing that. And he probably gets a massive deal from somebody. So I think if he pitches too well to come back, like, I don't know what the sweet spot is of pitches well but not too well to where the whole league is going to give him that $100 or $150 million deal that he would gladly take. Will says, I'm late to the game, but is there any truth to the story that pitchers have made it known they don't want to pitch to Contreras? So where you're getting that from is Bob Nightingale. That's the only place I've seen it so, like, definitively stated. But yes, there's truth to it in that clearly there was some communication and some things that were not right between the Cardinals and their pitchers, or I should say Contreras and the pitchers. But it's not true that they don't want to pitch to Contreras. It's maybe true that they didn't a couple weeks ago, but that's not the case anymore. It's over and done with. So there's no need to belabor that point, I don't think. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but there was some communication that clearly needed to take place, and it did. And so is it still a concern? To me, not at all. Especially not after what Flaherty did with Willson tonight. I just don't think it's a factor anymore. But I did, too, see the Nightingale article. I don't know anything more than what y'all know about that one. But other than everything I've said, right, that there was some communication that clearly needed to be better. Like, we've gotten into a lot of it. I won't rehash it all right now because I've done it tonight already. But as far as whether it's still a concern, I say no. I really don't think it is. I said last night, if Flaherty can have that outing where you emphatically can put the Willson stuff to rest, that would help everybody, and he did. He had his best outing in a long, long time. All right, Scott did some math. Going into tonight, if they could go 30-15, they would reach the 500 mark at game 81, halfway. Well, I don't think that's math is right because they're not 15 games under 500. They were 9 under before tonight, so that math is not quite there. But I get what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. That might have been like true a week ago when they were like 14 under, but now they're 8 under, and even before tonight they were 9. Waka W literally picked him up 3 hours before he started. That's what you love to see in fantasy baseball. Scott says just keep winning series. That's all. Yeah. You don't lose series. You don't backslide. We said backslide is the kind of phrase of the day. That's huge. Brandon asked if Flaherty's going to have a post game. He did. It was hours ago, but he did. Haven't seen it posted yet, but the others have theirs up. I don't work for Bally, so I don't know. I can't speak to that. But yeah, he had one this hours ago. If it's 1 a.m., I say it's probably not coming up. But Bo Barton, what's up, man? He says they're so back, Brendan. I think you could be right about that, Bo. Joel, welcome in. I really thought the Contreras homer was a lock to hit tonight. First game back catching, team on fire. He's going to jack one in this series, no doubt. Maybe tomorrow against the lefty. Yeah, didn't do much at the plate, but he was focused on what he had to do behind it, and that worked out really well for the Cardinals tonight. Robert says, after what I've seen the past week, I think O'Neill needs to go. Well, O'Neill's not even on the team right now. He's on the IL, so that's not fair. You haven't seen O'Neill at all, but you're basically saying with him they were losing and without him they're winning. You have the lineup and the bench that they're comfortable with right now. Get a starter. Can't get a starter for Tyler O'Neill, Robert. I've been saying it time and time again. If you think there's a team that has a good starter that wants to trade for a guy that's struggling, I don't really think you and MLB teams are on the same page about that. If you don't want him on the team, which I think that's a little bit too far. Like, I don't think O'Neill needs to go. I think he can help them win. Shouldn't play every day if he's struggling and you've got other guys that are playing better. But just to get rid of him, I don't think so. But can't get a starter for him because the team has to want to trade you a starter for the player. So right now, I don't think that's where things are with O'Neill. Connor, peace out, man. Appreciate you for being here. Only wanted Ollie fired if the losing continued as a way to have accountability by someone for the poor behavior. The boss needs to be accountable when expectations aren't being met. And I think you're completely right. Poor performance, he meant, not poor behavior, but one and the same. Yeah, and that's why it got to moments there in the throes of the losing skid where I thought they might do it, but I still said they shouldn't. I maintained that they shouldn't because I thought we would get to this point with the St. Louis Cardinals where they'd be on the other side of it. Record-wise, they're still not, but performance-wise, they very much are. They were never firing Ollie is the reality, and they saw it through, and now they're able to look back on that, I think, and say, hey, that was the right way to go about it. Now, they still do need to win more games to get to 500 and beyond. Scotty, Grand Slam Scotty says, good morning, Brenden. Yeah, 1 a.m. where I am. I don't know where it is where you are, but it's even worse, I bet. Or even later, I should say. Managed to stay awake until the 6th. Looked like you missed a lot of fun. Jack looked good after that first. Yeah, he did. He was locked in, man. It was fun to watch him. Pretty impressive. Tim says, hell of a night, and he's correct. Eric says, only proper way to describe this game is a gif of an alien dancing. I can get behind that. CJ says, looks good, Bubba. Still think Contreras could be a Gold Glove left fielder. Let's can that conversation, CJ. And Andy says, I got you with a few subs if the number helps. The number very much helps, Andy. The number is everything. To get to 1,000. I mean, the thing is, I can join or I can apply to join the YouTube creator program where I can begin to monetize the videos. Yes, I think y'all will see some ads for that. That is what it is. You'll click through them. You'll say you skip ad, whatever. That's fine. We all do it. But I can't even get to that point where I can start to make even $1 or $2 off these videos until I am at 1,000 subs and 4,000 hours of watch time content on my channel, which, like, every time you as Eric Dieters or as CJ or as Andy watches an hour of my content, that is one watch hour. A lot of videos that I put out are not an hour long. These are, the streams are, but the videos that come out, that might just be a 5-minute video. And so to get to an hour, 12 people would have to watch the whole video. But I have news for you. Most people do not watch the whole video, especially a long stream, but even a short video, they might look at it for a minute and go, this guy sucks, and they click off of it. That is the attention span of folks these days. That's just the way it is. And if you're a content creator, you probably have experienced that. But the news is 4,000 hours we're close to. We're actually, after tonight, probably over 3,300. And then it's just a matter of getting a couple more 100 subscribers. So, Andy, if you know people, yes, it helps. I DM my Twitter followers, guys. Some of you may have gotten that DM before. When I see people really interacting with me, I think maybe they like the YouTube. I'm just going to let them know what I'm doing, and maybe they haven't noticed it yet. And a lot of times they go, oh, yeah, I'd love to subscribe. So that's been the game for me recently. The Grave of Einstein just said Gorm, which is true. And Felix is the last comment I see on here, so we'll probably try to get out of here shortly. But he says, it almost seemed like Willson was trying to distract the batter with what he was doing behind the plate. Okay, distract the batter, which a lot of times they shouldn't really be peeking back for the sign anyway, but especially with PitchCom, right? But peeking back for location, maybe, that sort of thing. I could see that, Felix. I could definitely see that being potentially something that would be prioritized by a guy like Contreras, right? So I think I've gotten through all the comments. I have got to be done right now because it's 1:15 and I still have writing to do. So I appreciate you guys a ton for being here, for staying through the whole thing, for liking it, for subscribing to the channel. You guys have been fantastic. Anybody who's still watching that has not subbed to the channel, do me a favor. Hit sub and go right to Twitter at bschaefer12 and say, I just now, for the first time, subscribed. Send me a message on Twitter and let me know that, because I want to be very grateful to you, because a lot of people maybe haven't done that. So appreciate you guys as always. I'm not going to bother plugging the Patreon tonight, but thank you guys for joining me. We'll probably be back here tomorrow. It'll be another late night affair. But Cardinals win. We'll see what they do against Wade Miley and company on Tuesday. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk to you next time on Be Safe Daily Live. Peace.